Well, just first of all, I just want to tell you, I think that probably most people know about.
Quiet, everyone. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just want to say that we never, ever support political parties or candidates, but we do study issues and we take positions on those. We actively work to support those positions through education and passage of laws. We do lobby our legislators and also our city council people and so on at various points as needed. It has two separate and distinct roles. I'm here with the voter service citizen education role. The other one is our action advocacy. So you won't see me advocating for one position or another. If I slip up and you note any bias, please tell me, because I hope I'm presenting them fairly. So we're talking, each time we talk, this time we're talking about the changes to the way we're voting, so the Voters' Choice Act. And we're also talking about the census, which is coming up. Then we'll get to Measure E, and if we have time, we'll go to the state measure, which is Proposition 13 this time, and then just wrap up. So, Voters' Choice Act.
It's changed.
Okay. What's changing starting this election? Every registered voter will receive a vote by mail ballot starting 29 days before Election Day. And voters can go to any of the vote centers in Santa Clara County. There are going to be 22 vote centers that are open 11 days before the election and all the way up to the election, and 88 that are going to be open for 4 days prior to the election and the election. And they will have more space, additional services, and new enhanced voting equipment is what the commercial says. I don't know what that means exactly, but we'll find out when we go into one of the voting centers if we do. We can also just mail it. So, okay. If you're not registered, you can go to register-to-vote.ca.gov. You can also register to vote for the Change Party at any time at any of the vote centers. This has come up as an issue. I think that they clarified it, but DMV was sometimes goofing up on your party preference. And if you have a wish to vote in one of the parties and what you get in the mail says that you can't, you go to one of the vote centers and change it. So that shouldn't be a problem. Okay, census. That starts on April 1st, so soon after the election. And I think most of you know that the money that we get from the federal government is allocated based on our population. So it's very important that we count every single person. So there's a big push out to get people like, a lot of people think that, well, I just have kids, I don't have to register them. Well, that's not true. They use up some services, right? And as they grow in the next 10 years, they certainly do. And college students and so on that are really kind of hard, and of course the homeless population is difficult. So they're making inroads in all of those and hiring a lot of census takers. And if you are interested in a job, I don't know, I may have a few flyers on that, but anyway, that's easy to find out how to do that. And how to complete the census. This year, for the first time, you can do it online. 10 years is a long time, and there's been a lot of progress, and so they're letting you do that. In fact, they prefer that. You can do it by phone in several different, 15 different languages, I think it is, including for the deaf, which should be great. There's a paper form that can be filled out, and if they don't hear from you by May, they're going to be coming to your house and knocking on the door and wanting to make sure that you have been counted and will be counted. Okay, the next one, how to evaluate propositions, because we're going to get into Proposition E. But first of all, we do like to have you be aware of things that you should think about as you're evaluating ballot measures. First of all, do you agree with its goals? Will it change things to make things better? Are they good government? Does it deal with one issue needing a yes or no vote? Is it well written, or might it create conflicts requiring court resolution? Does it create its own revenue source? This is important because it would reduce the flexibility of the budget if you are imposing a cost that doesn't have its own revenue source. And you should look at who are the real sponsors and opponents, not just the names of those committees that people come up with. I think everybody is aware that you need to be wary of ads, and they might distort or rely on image alone or give half-truths. Okay, so San Jose Measure E. This is a new real property transfer tax. It's a municipal code amendment, and we need a majority vote, and it would begin in July if it passes. And the question on that one, this is a shortened version of the long thing that they have on the ballot. To fund general City of San Jose services, including affordable housing and helping homeless residents move into shelters and permanent housing. Shall an ordinance be adopted enacting a real property transfer tax, exempting transfers under $2 million adjusted for inflation? So that, in other words, if you sell your home after July 1st, then you and the buyer would have to be paying a transfer tax based on its value, but only if the value is over $2 million, which is, they're saying that's about 2% of all transfers. So it's not a big number, but it's important if you're one of them.
It's only on the incremental amount of 2 million.
No, it's not. No, it's on the full value.
Oh, it's on the full value? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The situation, San Jose has a real property transfer tax. Right now, it's a small one. It's apparently much smaller than most of our surrounding communities that have property transfer taxes for various reasons. This one is $3.30 per thousand based on the sales price. And the revenue is used for capital needs of parks, libraries, fire, and other city facilities. And it generates about $38 million a year. 38,000, right? And all of the proposal itself, if we go on to that, it provides more revenue from real property transfer. It's based on the sales price, or for business entities and so on, it's based on the fair market value of a transfer from one entity to another. So if there's an ownership transfer there. Exempted are those that are valued under $2 million, inflation adjusted, and also various things such as gifts, inheritance, divorce, court proceedings. There's something about the SEC proceedings. There are all sorts of little tiny things like that. Ordered foreclosure, court-ordered foreclosure, partnerships, some bankruptcies would be exempt from that. And this is a general tax for unrestricted general purposes. And currently, so it can go to anything. That you really should understand that it could go to anything. But our current city council has voted, not overwhelmingly, but very strongly, to spend the money on increasing the supply of affordable housing in San Jose. That would be 85% of the revenue that's brought in. And it would be 45% for those with less than 30% of the median income, 35% for those of 30 to 80% of median income, and 10% for those 80 to 120% of median income. And it would also provide homeless prevention activities and rental assistance for 10% of the revenue go toward that. It requires annual financial audits and yearly reports of the revenue collected from the city manager. And the city council will be appointing an oversight committee to review expenditures. It can be repealed by the city council at any time, but rate increases would require a vote of the people. And then if we go on to the rates, the rates are applied to the full value and exempt under $2 million, but then $2 million to $5 million at 0.75%, 5 million to 10 million at 1%, and over 10 million at 1.5%. So for a $3 million sale, for example, the tax would be $22,500 if I did my math right. And 7 million is a little bit easier, it's 70 million, because it's a 1% at that point. And generally, this is split between buyer and seller. I don't know if that same rule would hold if it's business ownership changes. There might be negotiations there, but it's just generally that's the way it happens here. And that's supposed to generate about $70 million annually. So it would give us some good money for, hopefully, for the housing, which has been a big problem, as all of you know. And then every 5 years, beginning in 5 years, the rate would be adjusted, or not the rate, the thresholds would be adjusted based on the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, or whatever replaces that. I noticed in the text of it, it says the Consumer Price Index for San Jose, or for San Francisco, Hayward, and so on, and not for San Jose. I think that was an error in the text, so I hope that they can use the right one for our area instead. This can be repealed by the City Council at any time, but rate increases would require a vote of the people. The fiscal effects, we're there, okay, got that. And the supporters say that the homeless community has increased 40% since 2017, and there is wide support from community groups. It'll be easier for residents to afford to live in San Jose, and only taxes on sale of properties worth more than $2 million, which is less than 2% of all property owners. So the property owners, not necessarily transfers itself, so I don't know what that ratio is. And then the opponents say that since 2014, new citywide taxes have come into effect, that we voted into effect, costing $92 million annually, and 2 countywide new taxes. And they are saying enough is enough. And Measure E is a general tax, so city councils can spend the money on anything they choose, and it will make it more expensive to buy properties for development, so fewer homes will get built. For their websites of the supporters and the opponents, Affordable San Jose is a website for the .com, for the pro, and svtaxpayers.org is a website for the opposition. Supporters, there are several, well, Sam Liccardo, of course, he's been named on the fundraising committee itself, so that's obvious, and several other council members, Supervisor Susan Ellenberg, County Assessor Larry Stone, various other people that and obviously Destination Home, Housing Trust, and so on are big supporters. They have raised, they filed a report on the 18th of January. They had raised $48,750. Housing Trust had given $25,000 back, and Charities Housing $10,000, and John Stewart Company $10,000. That's a San Francisco firm. I don't know what that is. Life Moves gave $2,500, and various others that were giving under $1,000. The opponents are Johnny Camus, council member, Deb Davis, council member of the Republican Party of Santa Clara County, the Libertarian Party of Santa Clara County, the Bay Area Homeowners Network, Silicon Valley Taxpayers Association, and Citizens for Fiscal Responsibility. They haven't filed any reports of having raised any money, so presumably it's smaller than the threshold for that reporting period. So I think before we go on, are there questions on Measure E?
George has one.
I just wondered when you mentioned the percentages, is that available somewhere of what the plan is, 85% to homeless, but then it was supposed to be all broken down. Is that available somewhere, those numbers?
Is it in there? It might be in there. It's in, where I got it was from the city council reports. So you can go in and look up the minutes of the city council.
Which information is available? Reach out to my office.
Okay, I'll contact Kathy, thank you.
Yeah, if you could send it to us, that'd be great, because then we can distribute it with the meeting. One quick question, does it apply to commercial and residential properties?
Yes, definitely commercial property. That's where you have all this stuff about the fair market value, and SEC something, and all sorts of stuff that has to do with their changing properties and the legal definitions, going in great detail on what that means.
What were the two websites? It says the pro website was affordable something, and then the opposition was
AffordableSJ.com.
SJ.
And then svtaxpayers.org.
Equity.
SV, Silicon Valley, SV taxpayers. .org.
Oh, yes.
SB Valley.
I think there was one more question.
You asked my question.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, Justin has a question, and then I do.
Oh, so you mentioned came out on the CPI is calculated. So I looked it up. It's the San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward area for the Department of Labor, and that's Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, San Francisco, and San Mateo counties. It does. You're right. It doesn't include San Mateo.
I was really surprised at that, and that's in the text. So I assume that can get changed, because they do say that they can change if the index, that they use changes. But there is one down here, and why did they put the wrong one in? I don't know. But I think that's just an error. But they would correct it. Yeah.
So my question is, do you have any idea why the measure doesn't explicitly state that the money goes to homeless, etc.?
Yeah, because it needs 2/3 vote. So if this is a general, and then it only requires a majority vote. And their polling said that they might not get 2/3. And so they decided to, I guess, gamble, I don't know, they decided to go ahead with it, but have it be something that they strongly supported, but they couldn't guarantee.
Any more questions on Measure E, or she has a few comments, I think, about Proposition 13, right?
Yeah, I do. Okay, here we are. Okay. This one, just to start off, why Proposition 13? Well, what happens is every 10 years, their propositions are numbered. Every 10 years, they start over with one. And so the last election, which was 2 years ago, they had Propositions 1 through 12, which you may remember. And I certainly remember them because I had to speak on them and speak on them ad nauseum. And so start with 13 this time, and so next election, which is in November, we'll be starting at 14, and we'll have another, that will be another big round. And another thing to be aware of is that the only things that can be on primary elections or non-general elections are legislative measures, and so that's why there's only just the one. Even though there have been others, particularly seen petitions from a lot of others, and they're all vying for space on the not vying, because if they qualify, they're on the, but it would be a long November ballot. So, and just to say a little bit about this is a little bit easier, I think, than the San Jose measure. This authorizes bonds for school facility repair, construction, and modernization. Well, it's not easy enough. We'll get to that. Anyway, but it is a bond measure. You all know a lot about bonds and how they work. And so this one has 9.2. I'm not getting my full thing on my slide. Okay. Okay. Starting out, California provides public education for 9.2 million students. That's what confused me. About 10,000 preschools and K through 12, 115 community college campuses, 23 state universities and campuses, and 10 UC campuses. And the state helps cover facility costs. What's new on this one is that they'll cover facility costs for preschools, which they never have before. And on the next one, this is $9 billion out of the $15 billion goes to preschools and K through 12, and it's broken down. As you can see there, they're really highlighting modernization and over new construction. And they do set aside some for charter schools and some for career technical education too. And then there's $6 billion for community colleges, state universities, and UC systems, and that's split evenly. The next one, so far since 2002, $45 billion has been authorized by voters. Now, most of that is committed, and applications have come in to cover the remaining part of that funds. That's entirely exhausted for colleges and universities, and there's some for the districts, and that's off the applications pending. So they felt that they needed another bond reservoir because they're really concerned more about repairs this time. The projected cost would be $700 million a year for 35 years. That's about 0.05% of the state's current general fund budget. They're changing some things on this, and this is when I told you about it being one measure covering a lot of things. It sort of does, but it sort of doesn't, because they just refer to a companion measure that they passed companion bill that they passed in the legislature to make some changes in this. The share, they used to have it, first of all, it was a first come, first served, and this was sort of biased toward larger school districts who were able to, as soon as they could, get going on doing their budget and so on. So they've set up, for one thing, sliding scale, which has, I think that's on here. The sliding scale is based on districts with low, I devised this slide and added a slide last night, but I didn't put it in here, so I'll look here. So it's based on districts having a hard time raising local funds, so this would be the small districts, and those higher in their percent of low income and second language speakers, so et cetera. So if you go to the next slide, and it gives priority. It's not just based on first come, first served, as I said, but it gives priority to health and safety projects, and then for school districts, they have additional priorities. You get priority if you have difficulty raising your local share, because this, I should explain that all of these state bonds, you have to have a local share, and this is, it's been 50%, and I think 60% if it's renovation, and that's what that sliding scale change is, that sliding scale. And then projects testing and addressing lead in water. And within that priority, if you use unionized construction labor, and then for all, for both the universities and the school districts, elementary and secondary, you have to have a 5-year facility master plan developed and turned in when you apply for the funds. And those for higher education must include affordable housing for students. So that would be prioritized when they do that. Okay, and we can go on. The supporters say that this meets the needs for safer, healthier schools, helps pay for much needed repairs and security upgrades. And the opponents say that the schools will be allowed to carry a higher debt load while there is a $21 billion surplus in the budget and higher taxes would be required to pay the bond debt, and that would be both locally because of the local share and on the state level. So, questions on that one? Oh, I do have, I forgot, I do have supporters. Okay, supporters. The California Professional Firefighters, California Teachers Association, California Nurses Association, and California State Parent Teachers Association and Association of California School Administrators. And opponents are State Senator Brian Jones of District 38, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and a retired teacher, Larry Sand, and the other ones that signed the ballot arguments. And financial support, I only have it from January 2nd, and neither side had reported any funding coming into for the campaigns.
We're probably have time for one question. Gary's got the.
Yes, this is being voted on March 3rd, and do you anticipate any confusion with the ballot measure when we'll be dealing with the old propositions in the commercial tax that will be likely coming up?
Do I anticipate any what? I'm sorry.
Yes, this particular Proposition 13 will be voted on March 3rd.
Oh, will people be confused about it? I'm sure that they'll start out being confused, but if they read it, it's talking about school bonds. Hopefully they'll, at least look at the title.
It is confusing.
Yeah, it is confusing, but then, they recycle them, and I think it's been recycled since, I'm sure it's been recycled, because they're recycled every 10 years, so we've had that before, and hopefully people would know that. So, there's at least one more slide.
Oh, I think this is it. This is democracy. Oh, is
this
it?
one, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just the democracies are vote, but also just want to say votersedge.org is just a really great, I say this because I'm League of Women Voters, but it really is a very thorough place to go to get information, and you enter your address, and so it will give you all the information about the races that you will be voting for, and also about propositions and measures. I haven't gotten mine up there yet, but it will be up for the local issues as well. People are just starting to fill that out, so it's too soon to go on now because the candidates haven't had a chance. They fill it out themselves and upload it to the site, and they can upload position papers and so on. So it's a really good way. I certainly have a bias toward candidates who do not fill it out because it's free. I just really think it's really silly if they don't have somebody on their campaign staff fill it out. It seems like a really logical thing to do, but you'll find that a lot of them don't. So that's my bias there. So.
Well, thank you, Martha.